Scuba Obsessed, the weekly podcast. We talk about all things scuba diving, from cool new gear to places to dive and scuba news. Scuba Obsessed episode 493 is recorded live May 6th, 2021. Welcome back to Scuba Obsessed. I'm Darrin Gilson, coming to you from the southwest side of the great state of Michigan, where we are starting to see leaves on the trees. Joining me this week, we have Mack, the dive mentor. How you doing today, Mack?
I'm doing very well, and I'm not too much worried about the leaves on the trees. It's the dandelions in my yard, or better, the dandelions in my neighbor's yards.
Oh, so your yard's fine. You're one of those where your yard is
Yes.
perfect and fine, and then everybody else is bringing in the alien species.
Yep, I'm getting ready to get out some M80s and M100s and toss down the little mole holes too, though.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That has to be real popular in a city neighborhood.
Well, I've got a technique. This one guy digs a nice straight hole down, so I'm going to put a M80 or a 100, light it, and then I got a steel plate to put right on top. I'm going to stand on it real quick. So all the explosion and concussion hopefully will migrate through his tunnel and give him a hell of a headache.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Yep. If that doesn't work, propane is next.
Propane.
Yes, that little booger out.
So the rotinator returns then.
Oh, I've got to try that a little bit anyway.
Yeah, you can. So is this a sanctioned rotinator, or would this just be a hose out the end of the tank?
Hose off the end of the tank. I mean, it's worth a try. Come on.
Yeah, I advocate
Just because
that.
you're old don't mean you know everything. That's where I can be a little stupid and tell you about it next week. Or my neighbors can.
Yeah. Well, this is our third week here of trying streaming on YouTube. I think it's going to be a little bit better. Still trying to dial it in. We're just on the edge of the bandwidth that we need. Just that we're like that far apart from what we need to have a really good stream. So, and then it drops down real low every once in a while. We're getting there. We'll get this figured out. So I'm cutting back on a few things I tried last week in hopes of adding some back in. So I've got the articles will be running on a tablet to try and offload from the computer to see if I was maybe overloading the computer. I have a feeling I'm going to have to build a system just for streaming. But so 2 weeks in a row, got them edited, got them out there. I'd like to thank everybody who's listening tonight. We have Karen's in the chat room and also watching the stream live on YouTube. We also have Eric and Dave this week. So thank you very much for tuning in and kind of testing this out. We'll eventually get this done. My goal is to get this refined, and then we take the satellite dish on the road and we'll try some live streams of some actual events. So that should be pretty good, especially since we're approaching our, was it 500 episodes? Is that what we're getting close to? We're at 493.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah. I'm going to have to do the math, figure out when that is. I got to get a dive in before 500. That'd be embarrassing.
This weekend. Didn't a lot of guys go out
this weekend?
Last weekend? Didn't they go to the quarry for the meet and greet?
The meet and greet was down there at Gilboa. I'd love to hear from some of them to understand how that went. So, but for the time being, let's go ahead and jump right on into the news. Let's see. I think I've got an article already queued up. Let's see how this goes. Is this the first one on the list, really?
Hyperbaric.
Yeah, so the Hyperbaric Treatment Center, to close temporarily for renovations. University of Hawaii Hyperbaric Treatment Chamber located in, oh goodness, another name I can't pronounce. We'll call that the K Medical Center. The Kukini Medical Center will temporarily suspend all operations from June 28th through August 13th, undergo renovations, and is asking the Hawaii scuba diving community to plan accordingly. Queens Medical Center has agreed to provide limited emergency hyperbaric services during the HTC renovations. Due to limited capacity, QMC will only be able to admit emergency patients who are suitable or stable and without need for other medical interventions. University of California, San Diego multi-place hyperbaric chamber in San Diego, California will serve as a potential backup. Wow, that's a distance, isn't it?
And you're going to have to be in an airplane pressurized to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a pain.
Ooh.
I can't believe that they do not have one at the Navy facility.
I would think they would, or that they could have
In
made
Pearl.
arrangements. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in an emergency is an emergency.
Well, the other thing is, could you have, brought in a seaborne hyperbaric chamber? Seems like there should be some sort of, because commercial operators have to have them. Maybe somebody could bribe one of them. Of course, liability is probably what prevents many from even considering it. We regret the necessary disruption to hyperbaric service, but look forward to resuming full operations with more modern and sustainable infrastructure in August. Thank you for your understanding and support. It says that the center has treated civilian divers for decompression sickness or the bends in Hawaii since 1983 and maintains 24 hours, 7 days a week emergency service. In 2020, HTC treated 18 emergency patients, provided more than 1,350 hyperbaric oxygen treatments for patients suffering from tissue damage due to infection, illness, and radiation. In 2019, 29 emergency patients were treated with more than 1,300 hyperbaric oxygen treatments were provided. I would love to know how many were dive-related in that number.
I was trying to look, and I don't see where it said that. I think it's interesting that that was a $1.6 million renovation, and the state legislature paid for that.
Yeah. Now, too bad you couldn't have done that during the pandemic when you weren't letting people dive anyway.
Yeah, actually, that's an odd thing about it, but I don't think they were diving anyway.
Yeah.
What did they overhauled the chamber control station, patient monitoring, and system upgrades. That looks pretty nice.
Yeah. That's a pretty decent sized chamber they got there.
Yeah, did you see how many people they treated there? They said 18 emergency patients, more than 1,350 oxygen treatments, hyperbaric oxygen treatments.
Yeah.
That's where the monologue comes in handy, because you see what they were doing was tissue damage due to infection, illness, and radiation. So the monologues that they have there at in Kalamazoo would be ideal for that. I'm surprised they don't have some smaller units like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I am as well. Or maybe they're just not counting them in the case of this article.
That's true.
Because a lot of hospitals have the smaller units. I mean, Lakeland here in St. Joe has the smaller units.
Yep.
Not necessarily suitable for a bends treatment, but I mean, something's better than nothing, I'm thinking.
I would think so too. I know they use it for gangrene, that kind of stuff. Monoxide poisoning, they use it for that. And I can't remember. I used to remember I couldn't remember if it was 15 pounds or 28 pounds, because even 1 atmosphere would really help you out, I would think, if you had the bends and you had to have some kind of treatment. That would sure beat not having any at all.
Yeah.
In the monologue.
Well, let's take a look at this next one. If you remember, we had been covering the Franklin expedition. The first crew member of Franklin's lost expedition that was left 129 dead, has been identified. In 1845, 2 ships departed England in search of unexplored areas within the Canadian Arctic, hoping to uncover secrets that lay in the magnetic data to help aid exploration. The sailor in question was John Gregory, a warrant officer and engineer aboard the HMS Erebus, whose remains were discovered 75 kilometers south of Erebus Bay, where the frozen shipwreck was found. After teeth and bones were sampled for DNA, scientists have positively identified him through family analysis of his living descendants. Having John Gray's remains being the first to be identified via genetic analysis is an incredible day for our family, as well as those interested in the ill-fated Franklin expedition, said Gregory's great-great-great-grandson, Jonathan Gregory, who lives in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. In a statement, the whole Gregory family is extremely grateful to the entire research team for their dedication and hard work, which is so crucial in unlocking pieces of history which have been frozen in time for so long. What is known about the doomed voyage has been placed from local Inuit people, letters written prior to the crew's disappearance, examiners of the remains of the fated crew. HMS Erebus and HMS Terror are waiting in Baffin Bay to the west of Greenland in July 1845, a good opportunity to continue their way on their sightings of the two ships made. Whalers passing the area is the last confirmed sighting of the crew alive, according to a note discovered in the aftermath. According to Victory Point note, Franklin and his crew became stuck in the ice September 1846 around King William Island. These ships would never sail again, but the crew were thought to have stayed on the ships for a few years whilst they held out for hope for release from the surrounding ice. Following Franklin's death on the 11th of June, 1847, the crew made a decision to abandon the ships, attempting a desperate 400-kilometer journey to the Canadian mainland. Despite making an impressive distance to the northern coast, all men would perish on this trek. In 1848, a search party was sent to discover the ill-fated lost ship. As combined with the efforts of subsequent explorers over the next century, would be begin to unravel the surrounding the expedition's end. In 2014, 2016, the wreck of the Erebus and the Terror would be discovered. And then photo.
I find it interesting. One, I don't understand the science of how they can take a skull and actually model a face out of it. It would have been interesting to see the model that they had and then one of the relatives to see if there are some semblance.
Oh, that would have been neat.
And the second part is where they're uncovering the skull. Did you see the picture there?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very rocky area. I just wondered, did they find the rest of the torso? Because looking at the picture, I see his head, but I don't see any other bones.
They say what year that was. Because there was some, I remember, gosh, it had to have been as a kid, in National Geographic, they had found the bodies, but they hadn't found the ship back in that time. And I think there was some discussion where that was lead poisoning. And I think that's later been reviewed.
Yeah, that's what we used to hear. It was the, botulism was one, the other was lead poisoning because of the lead seals on the cans back in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then back at this first picture where you're saying how they do the recreations, part of it is they have to know or have to kind of guess what the ethnic background is, because they have, different ancestry will have different amounts of flesh and tendon and stuff above the bone. So they'll say, hey, we presume that this is a European from this area, and then they do the adjustments, and then they can model the clay. But there's going to be a little bit of artistic license, I think, still going in there. But like you said, it'd be kind of neat to see if they could show us what they may have looked like, or what their family looks like. How close were they? Is there some sort of family resemblance?
And did they actually do it from scratch, or did they look at some of the family members to maybe help them fudge it a little bit?
Yeah. They could have done something like that as well. Well, how about this? Wouldn't mind finding something along these lines. Scuba diver finds rare Ice Age mammoth bone at the bottom of a Florida river. Florida scuba diver Derek Demeter and Harry Sadler found a 4-foot, 50-pound mammoth femur embedded in the sand at the bottom of Peace River last Sunday. In an interview with the Orlando Sentinel, they called it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. when you uncover the fossil and realize that these were giant elephant-like creatures roaming around what was probably once grassland in Florida, it gives you a sense of wonder what it was like back in ancient times. Demeter, director of the Seminole State College Emules Bueller Perpetual Trust Planetarium, said it's a kind of way of time traveling. It makes your imagination go wild. Yeah, it's a big guy, isn't it?
That's a pretty good sized bone. That'd been pretty darn cool to find.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, if you found that one big one, there's got to be other ones the same size.
Yeah. So
Would you go back out and look for more of those?
I would,
Look
because
for where they're current? I would go up current, wouldn't you?
you would think so. It's got to be in the area. It's like it not just a leg went. Yeah, it wasn't like
Yeah.
takeout. Somebody just said, "I'll grab this leg and gnaw it on my way."
Yeah.
The pair had originally intended to head to the Venice to search for shark teeth that day, April 25th, but strong winds deterred them. Sadler told NBC2. Instead, the dive buddies decided to take a dip in the Peace River, the waterway located in the city of Arcadia. Henry came up. It's like, Derek, I think I found something amazing, and just freaking out. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. I was in denial. It was really neat to be discovered. The pair speculate the bone belonged to a Columbian mammoth, so tall a person would need to stand on the second floor of a building to touch his head. According to the National Park Service, Columbian mammoths inhabited Florida between 2.6 million years ago and 10,000 years ago. Predation by humans may have contributed to their extinction, according to Florida Museum of Natural History. This one's much more dense, so we kind of think it's somewhere in the middle, probably 100,000 years old. Demeter told Fox 35 Orlando on the bone. In an Instagram post, Sadler, who found the mammoth teeth in the river on one previous occasion, described it as almost completely undamaged and very well mineralized. While Sandler... Go ahead.
I was going to say, it looks pretty much intact, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was in a pretty good shape. They said, while Sandler and Demeter typically donate their fossil discoveries to the Florida Museum of Natural History, Sandler's middle school teacher in St. Petersburg has stationed the mammoth bone in the classroom to educate his students about Ice Age animal life. There, they're able to see it, touch it, feel it, and really get a history of the natural world. He told the Sentinel they've heard about saber-toothed tigers, and actually finding a piece of one of these animals and bringing it to these kids is just awesome. In addition to mammoth bone, Demeter and Sadler have recovered the remnants of ancient shark and the tip of a saber-toothed tiger canine during the dive, according to Fox 35. So
I think we need to be going down to Florida and diving that area.
yeah,
saber-toothed tigers. Come on.
Yeah,
Shark teeth.
And just tell us
What's
where
not
that
to
was.
like?
Yeah. There you go. And then let's see, what's the next one we have on Pandora's box. Or not box. I inserted box. Pandora's padlock. On display 2 centuries after an infamous sinking. This is from abc.net.au. A priceless padlock, which sank to the bottom of the Great Barrier Reef with HMS Pandora almost 230 years ago, will be unveiled at the world's first expedition in Townsville this weekend. The museum, Tropical Queensland, is reopening the doors to more than a year and has undergone major restoration work since it was damaged in a 2019 monsoon event. Its star exhibits is a large padlock believed to have shackled mutineers in Pandora's box, sending many to the watery grave in April 1791. Museum senior curator, maritime archaeologist Maddie McAllister, said the padlock underwent a painstaking conservation process. This is the first time we find out some of the direct evidence about how the mutineers were breaking their shackles to escape Pandora as she was sinking, which by all accounts was really horrible. traumatic experience for them, Dr. McAllister said. Shackled by the ankles, piled into dark box, not able to stand upright, is the reality faced by mutineers aboard the British warship as she sank after crashing the Great Barrier Reef, taking 35 men with her. Having Pandora's collection here in Townsville is incredibly rare, Dr. McAllister said. There aren't many museums in the world, let alone Australia, that have a gallery dedicated to a shipwreck. A little bit of restoration work there in that padlock. And I think for the last one for this week is 1800 Shipwreck. The Darling finds temporary home in Mangawhai ahead of restoration. This one's out of New Zealand. The 1800 Shipwreck has added another journey to its 157-year history, a trip to a new temporary home outside the museum. The Darring, a D-A-R-I-N-G, a schooner, which was uncovered the shifting sands of Auckland's beach in 2018, will sit outside the museum for 3 years while work is done to restore the vessel. It is removed by volunteer group Daring Rescue Team, which used several heavy-duty moving trucks over 5 days. Photo showing them an overhead view. Historical items were also found in the wreck, including shoes, bottles, tools, and a Freemason's neckerchief. The Daring Rescue Group's Larry Paul said that the work was being done. Volunteers would start the search for a permanent location for the ship to be displayed. The plan is to create an all-purpose facility. He said that the Daring Discovery Center, we can't start work until we get further funding, so we are looking for people who are keen to help. Around 150 people showed up for a short ceremony to bless the ship's arrival, a karaoke, and a Piper blessing. The two-masted schooner originally built as a cargo vessel at the boat yards. It was wrecked twice, the first time in 1864, then again in 1865 when sailing from Taranaki to Manakua with a cargo of grass seed. So it's going to be out there in the weather, it looks like. They're going to cover it up or something? I hope this goes well for them, but we'll have to see.
Oh,
yeah, we never
were gone.
Yeah, we never lost any of your audio. I saw that. I responded back. So okay, you're good.
Oh, okay.
So did you have any comments on that? The end of that last article?
You're on the bones?
Yeah.
I'd like to go dive in there.
Oh, so you probably weren't even hearing me.
Yeah, I didn't hear nothing.
Yeah, because we went through the here, I'll bring back up that Pandora Wreck.
You went to you were talking Pandora, and my comment I had was priceless locks.
Priceless lock. Well, I think that what they find interesting about the lock was the kind of the story about it. I'm not familiar with that wreck, but it appears that there must have been some sort of mutiny, and that the mutinous part of the crew had been locked up in what they called Pandora's box, which was a small box where you're too short to stand up in, and then the ship went down when it hit the reef, and the captives were trying to break their shackles to get out and prevent from drowning, but it sounds like everybody perished.
I just say the words priceless padlock, and it's like, okie dokie. Yeah. If you had that and it was exposed and there was other items, if I was going to take something, I probably would not have taken either of those.
But if they had put in the article cheap old padlock, then nobody would have probably read it.
Probably.
Yeah, it's like that's a whole nother podcast. And then that shipwreck.
Now, we had seen that before, but this is where they're actually salvaging it.
Yeah.
And this is pretty decent as opposed to pieces of lumber on the beach that you uncover with sand.
Mm-hmm.
This is a shipwreck.
Yeah. Yeah, this is.
But how much did that cost?
Well, if I remember at the time, there was volunteers who were doing quite a bit of it, but I'm sure there's, I mean, if you count the volunteers' money and time in it, you probably have a couple $1 million easy.
Yeah, that's a trust fund actually that's paying for this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, but I always look at what's the return on the investment. And seriously, from the historical aspect, is it worth that much to you? How much would you pay to see that wreck?
Uh, I mean, I can't think it's something on its own unless there's such an amazing story with it that people want to see it. I mean, it's one thing if you
Mhm.
can get the Titanic up on shore and people can tour it, but something like this. I mean, we've seen a lot of. I mean, maritime museums. How many maritime museums are really saying that they're full and packed?
Mhm.
Probably not many. But what I was
Well,
noticing, go ahead.
I was going to say the aerial shot where they've coming up from the top.
Hmm.
I mean, that's really interesting. The aft end is gone, the rudder's gone, but it's not a lot there. I mean, you take some pictures, take some measurements, take some samples, and not a lot to see unless it was underwater.
Yeah, well, underwater would be kind of cool.
Well, then you got the challenge of it.
Yeah. Well, plus you want to go diving anyway. I mean, we go diving to see a sand beach. I mean, it just when there's something to look at, it's that much better. And yeah.
Well, I think part of it is if this were under the water, not great viz, partially covered in sand, you've got your imagination that's filling in the blanks. This way, it's stark, it's plain, it's like the mystery's not there.
Hmm.
The what if,
Yeah.
what's hidden, it's revealed, and now it's not so nice. Just some.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed is that it appears that it's outside. Uh, you've taken it out of the sand where it was somewhat protected. It's now sitting basically in a parking lot. It sounds like they're going to do restoration work on it for the next 3 years, but is it going to start to degrade?
Yeah, I was just looking for a spray system. I went to another section uh, because generally they say, "What do you got to do? You got to put it in water, or
Hmm.
at least spray it so it's continually, you know, minimizing its evaporation and splitting of the wood."
Well, maybe with this is different because they found it in a sand dune.
I don't know.
Could the wood have already, reached environmental humidity? So
Well, I think you take it up here where you've got all sorts of animal and infestations, because it looks like it's going to be part of the jungle behind it. If you looked at the pictures,
yeah,
what animals or creatures like wood?
woodpeckers,
Other than,
termites,
well, termites. I've seen some of those termite mounds there.
little carpenter
I'm
ant.
just curious.
Yeah, yeah, they got that. Okay, yeah, certainly.
I'm glad they've got the money.
Or they seem to.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for scuba news. Not mostly painless. I think we made it through that. The meet and greet down there at Gilboa this last week. So some people are getting out there doing some diving. So as we had covered a few episodes ago, Gilboa is under new ownership. So I would love to hear some firsthand comments on how that went. Did they?
Well, I know that Jim had a call out there for somebody to bring some tanks, and I thought Sweeney Bob goes to that every year,
Yep.
and I haven't seen anything posted on Facebook. So unless it's this weekend and not last weekend, that would explain it.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would have been. I'm going to take a look at the great big book of everything. See what we've got there. I was going to say it was last week.
I thought it was last weekend.
Did you hear of anybody else getting any diving in?
No, I have not. Only one I've talked to is Mary Beth, and she was offering duck eggs again. Her ducks must be just really producing when you're giving them away free.
Oh,
And as a side note, I did have French toast today with duck eggs.
with duck eggs, really?
Yes.
Okay. I can't say if I've ever had. I don't remember ever having.
Actually, they were pretty tasty. So I had that, and then I scrambled a bunch after. So Thursday we always have breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at Facebook and be great. It looks like there's 2 or 3 threads going on at the same time. He says, anybody at the meet and greet, bring back a couple of tanks. Then Gary said he'd bring them back. Oh, he said they're in his truck now. So yeah, that must have been last weekend, because they made it into his truck. Yeah, that's what Karen's saying also in the chat room.
Yeah, I always say, take your camera. It's not that it didn't happen, but we like to see the pictures.
Yeah, some of us, that's as close as we get. I've never been able to make the meet and greet.
Never have either.
Someday I'll do it.
But I do intend to hit the water this Saturday, as long as it's not lightning.
Yeah. So what's the location you're planning on?
The river.
Oh, okay.
Niles.
Okay.
I got a job coming up. That'll be in the St. Joe River, but that maybe next week also. I was hoping the rain, we got a little sediment washed in from the rain the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping for a few days of no rain to help clear that out.
Yeah, that would help. A little no rain will get things going.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to do wetsuit, make it a short dive.
Okay. Wetsuit. Is it warm enough yet for a wetsuit in the river?
Well, if I don't have anybody with me, I have to have a wetsuit because I can't do my back step.
Oh, okay.
So I will get wet this week.
Yeah. One way or another, gonna find a way.
It's always nice having some shore people, though. I mean, you never know when you might have a problem or difficulty.
Yeah.
And I always hate asking strangers, hey, you mind unzipping my suit? They look at you a little funny when you do that. Like, excuse me? Say what?
Yeah. Dave was saying in the chat room there's some posts on Facebook by people who attended. They must not be in my feed, because
same here.
I didn't see that. So Karen, before the show, was asking, it looks like that she's got a new...
Got a hummingbird?
Yeah, let's see. She says she's got a new Garmin, debating what about leaving on the old hummingbird and putting the sensor for the Garmin on the other side.
It's really good. It's really good to have 2 GPSs.
Mm-hmm.
One for your survey, because you can't do GPS routing and tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got 2, you use one for your tracking to make sure your zones are right, and leave the other one so you're not having to switch back and forth. Because almost everybody I know now, minimum for 2 GPSs.
Now, is there a problem with the sensors? Will they compete with each other?
Well, one, you're just using the GPS. You're not using the
down imaging or anything. Okay. But she could have both down imagers on, just maybe not run them both at the same time.
I know it. I'm not sure what kind of cross frequencies I have for the Garmin versus the Hummingbird. But you really got to have 2 people, because you got to have one to pilot. And if you're going to do your lanes, you really do need to be watching the GPS, not switching back and forth. And you need somebody watching for the blips and ready with the hand buoys to throw over when you find it.
Well, it was kind of nice because Jim's unit had the 2 big screens, and I was sitting in the front of the boat, and he just flipped the screen so I could see it. It was upside down, but I could still...
Mm-hmm.
So he could run the lanes, and then I could look and see if I could find anything.
Yeah.
That was nice. So let's see, Eric was saying, looks like it runs on 200 kilohertz.
I was always conservative. I never ran mine at full depth. And again, we were only looking maximum maybe 120 feet, because we kept looking for that barge off a cook plant that I dove that one night bazillion years ago by a fisherman in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And cannot re-find that sucker.
Yeah.
It's irritating. There's a lot of sand movement out there.
Yeah, sand moves around quite a bit. It's amazing how that happens. when we see a shipwreck and, well, like the Mack's wreck, I mean, that's got sand up to the rails.
Yep. I would so much like to be able to get permission to dig out the chain locker. I
Mhm.
think if we did that, since the windlass is there, and that's really a very old looking windlass,
Yeah.
the way the style is, I think that if we get into the chain locker, we'd be able to find something in that area to maybe give us a vintage or a year of it.
Yeah, I'm guessing that anything that was in the bottom of the boat's still there.
Yep, I am willing to bet that.
One of those, the tantalizing, a little tease for some archaeological program who could be willing to get the permits and do the effort. And here it is in the south part of Lake Michigan. You'd have
Yep.
you don't have to travel up to the UP or go down to Florida. You can do it right here and do a nice summer term.
And if you go straight off of Waco Beach, you don't have to do that traverse. So if you put a pontoon boat out there and just let people work on it all day, you could go back and forth from the shore.
Yeah,
It's
you could.
only less than 2 miles offshore.
Yeah, you could shuttle.
Yep. Safety factor is increased by doing it that way.
Hmm.
Because one of the thoughts was to just moor a buoy about, not a buoy, but a barge about around it,
Hmm.
and then let them do their surveys from that. And if we had some good weather, you could.
Yeah.
If weather changed, you bring the barge in, or the yeah, well, the barge, and but you still need to take it in and out. Those are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And we had sort of looked around to see who might volunteer to do that, because they're out there a lot, especially right now, putting stone again for shoreline erosion.
Oh, okay.
So the only problem is we could get somebody to help it set, but if a big storm came up, we'd have another wreck on our hands, or we'd have a shoreline wreck.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Do we have anything else that we want to cover this week?
Well, we could mention that we are going to do some short 30-minute talks. I've already taken your list and started getting the information. One that I found exceedingly interesting, where we were talking about shipwrecks. We want to put a shipwreck here in Lake Michigan.
Hmm.
They do it in Florida, they do it over other places. Why can't we do it here? So, doing a little research on why you can and why you can't, I discovered a lot of interesting items, especially when you talk about saltwater wrecks in the Pacific. There are in some places where they actually sank wrecks for that purpose,
Yeah.
for recreational, and some that were sunk but never salvaged. They have really, the way they are decaying
Hmm.
is killing the area.
Oh, really?
Yes, I had never heard about it, and they gave an example of one they had put down, decided it was going to be bad, and it cost them umpty scratch $1 million to remove it.
Was that one of them where they're having problems with the wiring on that was left on the vessel?
No, it was a combination of the paint, the cargo, and the deterioration of the metal.
Hmm.
And this is not, the wooden ones are not an issue. It's the newer ones. So when we start to talk about that, we're going to have some really interesting talks, and I think people will really enjoy hearing some of that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to doing that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Mac's referring to is we're doing these, we're taking the podcast and we're doing a live stream version, trying to come up with that to make it something interesting. We want it to where if you're listening in the car, it still makes sense. But if you want to kind of see some of the images, have some stuff, not so much that you're a little irritated if you're in the car, but maybe it encourages you to come back, watch the video. But there's some stuff we've wanted to do with the video. And some of it would be some short to medium size content. Some videos we would do that'd be 10 to 15 minutes on a particular topic. And then we may even do some long forms a little bit, call it a deeper dive into some of these ideas. So,
And some of this, we're going to be together in one location,
yeah.
makeshift studio. So the content hopefully will be more consistent and
Yeah.
We're not relying on satellites and internet speed.
No, no, we'll do a full edit and then post it up. So it'll
Looking forward to those.
a little different. Yeah, so we'll get that up. I'm working on a studio here at the house. So,
Yeah, you want to share some of the topics?
let me see what I had. That folder.
Well, obviously, underwater shipwrecks. Can we do it in the Great Lakes? Why or why not? That's one of the big ones.
Sinking a wreck.
Right. One was putting on an ecology dive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's involved in doing that and what's the best way. So if other people want to be doing it, we're going to give you some tips from experience. You know, what did we do and what did we learn? You know, some what to do's and what not to do's. And sometimes the what not to do's are very important.
Yep.
What else did we have?
I wanted to do some practical stuff, maybe on mass and tanks.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Some of it be a little clickbaity.
Well, like you said, one of them we talked about a little bit is how come they always say, and the diver in his oxygen tanks.
Yes.
Well, I did the research on that, and it's quite interesting, the logic behind that I never really appreciated. So we'll share that with them.
Excellent. So we'll get working on those here pretty soon.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be good. People are going to like them.
So I think we are getting to that time of the show. Did I lose you?
Nope, you're good. I'm right here.
Okay. A little bit of buffering going on with the live stream. So
damn satellite.
Yeah, that's a satellite. We'll see. Getting a little bit more. The tough thing is producing. Doing the producing of the video, of the audio, doing all the show notes. I mean, I feel like I need 4 hands and about 7 monitors. So, but we'll eventually get there. So, are you ready?
I'm sitting down.
Okay. My sister bet me $100 I couldn't build a car out of spaghetti. You should have seen the look on her face as I drove pasta.
That's the only problem with having video. We need to see the audience's video, not ours.
Yeah, we need to see them. Yeah. Well, how about we'll do another one. I went to the zoo the other day. It was empty except for a single dog. It was a Shih Tzu.
Okay, that's good but bad.
So where do animals go when their tails fall off? The retail store. Okay, and then
if the people do not like these, the solution is send us yours.
Yeah, I'm
please.
I'm beyond digging in the bottom of the barrel. I'm this is the scraping the internet. Is that a term? So why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom? Because the P is silent.
Please. Oh, the P is silent.
Of course, I think I probably said pterodactyl wrong.
Yes, you did.
See, then maybe that's part of the charm, I would say. So, until next time, go out there and get wet.
And stay safe.